which brings me to a moment I've dreaded and forces me to suspend my long-standing attempt at neutrality. There is no real choice this November. There is only the perpetuation, however flawed and feeble you might perceive it, of our fragile 249-year-old experiment, or the entropy that will engulf and destroy us if we take the other route. When, as Mercy Otis Warren would say, the checks of conscience are thrown aside and a deformed picture of the soul is revealed. The presumptive Republican nominee is the opioid of all opioids, an easy cure for what some believe is the solution to our myriad pains and problems, when in fact, with him, you end up re-enslaved with an even bigger problem, a worse affliction and addiction, a bigger delusion, James Baldwin would say, the author and finisher of our national existence, our national suicide, as Mr. Lincoln prophesies. Do not be seduced by easy equalization. There is nothing equal about this equation. We are at an existential crossroads in our political and civic lives. This is a choice that could not be clearer.
Tuesday, 28 May in the year of our Lord 2024. That is Ken Burns, the writer and director and creator of I think one of the most powerful, greatest documentaries ever, although from a Yankee perspective, that would be the Civil War. So Dave Brat, what in the hell is he talking? What the hell is he talking about? It amazes me, the meltdown of these people. I mean, full, complete meltdown. It's like MAGA. Oh, let me give you, if Denver can pull into here, my favorite book review. We're going to have this made into a big poster, the New York Times paper of record, MAGA on the March, talking about the precinct strategy and all of our listeners, the War Room Posse and others, the deplorables, the America First, all of it, taking control of the country. And they know likey. They know likey. Dave Brat, what is Ken Burns talking about?
I really couldn't detect what he was talking about. He offered no receipts and no content, no philosophical overview of the ideas he cares about. And it's just stunning, right? And so, his documentaries, they've always had kind of the safe flow, right? And when he says at the end the decision couldn't be easier, for me, that's the only thing I agree with him on. All political views are my own, but the decision coming up for MAGA and America First, you're right. The choice couldn't be clearer. All of our institutions, right, the international institutions, the WHO, the WHO thing that's hopefully going down right now as we speak, the rise of China, the rise of Russia, again, relative to us, the U.S. decline, all of our internal institutions, the CIA, the FBI, the intelligence agencies, have all failed. The Justice Department is no longer blind. It sees and it is going after American citizens and after our friend Peter Navarro and after the President of the United States. So, and the left, has the gall to talk about, an attack on democracy again, right? Whatever the left is doing, they gaslight you with that theme. What they're very upset about is that power is shifting. The African-American, Hispanic, young people are all coming over this way because for the first time, they get a clear set of receipts. They get 4 years of receipts under Trump and 4 years of receipts under Biden. And the American people are making up their minds. They're going, it's not a choice, right? And we got a few inflation graphs I can go over that probably is the number one, the border invasion and this, and then the endless wars where we're just spending, infinitely on 500,000 dead in Ukraine, right? The mainstream press and Burns won't mention any of these figures.
They don't want to talk about any details. They don't want to talk about any specifics. It's all the end of democracy. It's all this airy-fairy, trying to scare people, when this is my point. The democracy is working for us, baby. We like democracy because we have 2/3 of the nation and they're turning out, and that's why they're freaked out. Now the African American, Rasmussen says he thinks Trump can win. Trump's got 39%, Biden's got 38%, and there's, a slug in there that's undecided. So but the central thing is the mishandling of the economy and the invasion of the southern border and the forever wars. You've got some great analysis. And this is why working class people are sitting there going, Trump's not a racist. Trump had an economy that worked for me, right? Worked for me, a black man, worked for me, a Hispanic woman, worked for me, an Asian American that just got here, right? It worked for me because I could work for myself and it didn't get crushed by this regressive tax called inflation. Let's go through and take your time because we got more time today to go through your charts. I want to make the case here once again because, Jason Trennert was on here the other day, said Biden lost the inflation argument and it's basically over for him. Let's walk through it, sir.
Yeah, well, and let's just go to a couple facts you need to know before we get to inflation. Milton Friedman would say it's always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon, which means the Federal Reserve printed too much money. They've been propping up the 1%. They caused the 07-08 crisis. They're causing this current crisis. And the monetary policy, along with the fiscal $7 trillion government spending, which is on top of the monetary abuse of the American people. And now Fed Chairman Powell is talking just yesterday. Today, Dave Stockman's got a piece out on zero hedge. I got a couple of charts below on his piece, but he says the gall after we've been 8 months out from having 0% interest rates, which favored the 1%. The middle class, Stockman, his lingo appears to favor trying to help the middle class. And so I like it, what he's saying here. And before I get to the inflation chart, I just want to add this on. It just kind of, the simple things dawn on you, right, as you go over the basics over in your head over and over and over. This inflation tax is going to end up being 30%, right, just roughly speaking. That's on top of probably the 40% tax rate hit your family's experiencing if you're a middle-class worker, right? In Virginia, the average income is somewhere around $65,000 or $70,000 for a family of four. And then you just start doing the math on that, right? The federal tax rate, the part you really pay, I'm being fair, 20 to 25%, then add on a state tax rate, add on your food tax rates, all your tax rates for private property, et cetera, and you're up at 35%. So when I'm about ready to show you the federal government has already taken 35% of your income away from you. With the remaining income, there's another 30% hit. And so when the leftist elites say, you're not really feeling it, the data are in, the data are clear, there's no problem. No, there's a problem. Let's go to the first piece by Axios. It's good the mainstream folks are putting this out. Here's a chart put up by Axios that covers it pretty clearly. The blue line is the inflation rate, right? And so this is the part that's not explained, and Axios is doing a good job here of explaining the beginnings here. So that blue line shows you inflation going from roughly 1% up to about 9%, 12% on that chart, and then going down on the far right. That blue line is down to 1%. So the way they're measuring food inflation here, food inflation is down to 1%. But above it is the line that matters. That red line is the cumulative effect of inflation. And so after inflation hits 9, the red bar keeps going up and up and up. Why is that? Because the blue line to the right of it is still above 0. So you still have inflation, which means prices are still going up and up and up. It's a ratchet effect. Right? When you ratchet up your car, when you're changing a flat tire, nowhere in this process has that ratchet ever gone down. Prices have only gone up. So the bottom line on this graph, even though the inflation rate in the blue is down at 1% at the end, the red line is still going up. And so over the past few years, what has been the net effect on your food prices when you go to the grocery store? No shock to any of you, 20.8% up, 21%. Now, if Denver wants to go to the next chart, it gets even a little better. This is Stockman today, right? So Axios is a little dated, and this chart shows for the last 7 years, and you'll notice under the Trump years, inflation was low. Now, in the period from 2020 on, the prices go up through the roof, and so not only food is up. And over the past 7 years, the rough numbers on this, what this chart shows and what Stockman had today in this article, food is up 32%. Now, keep in mind what I said earlier. Your taxes have already stripped away 35% of your income. Now with your remaining money, you're paying an additional 32% food tax because your dollar is only worth 70 cents. Shelter's gone up 34%. Energy's gone up 35%. And transportation services have gone up 36%. And again, this, if you look at the top of that chart, this is not rightwing.com. This is the Federal Reserve Bank data, Fred. This is their main data set that they're showing. And then one more chart I'll just show you, just to show you what's at stake here, right? So the reason Stockman is hot is because the Fed has basically stripped out our productive capacity, right? By the stock market is at its all-time high, while the real economy productivity has been down for 70 years in a row. This chart in a snapshot shows you why that's the case. This chart shows you the red line, real value added output. Output is the stuff you make that's counted in healthcare, education, and social services. Those are all transfer payments, right? So those don't yield further economic growth in the future, especially the way we're doing education right now with all the woke stuff. It'll hurt economic growth instead of causing it. Those three, healthcare, education, social services, grew at about 3% per annum, 3 times more, 300% more than the growth in manufacturing, making non-durable goods and services, the black line at the bottom. So this, in a nutshell, the inflation damage to you that we just showed in the 35% range, over and above the tax rates you're paying to the government. And then this is the real damage to the economy. And this is why when the media says the economy is fine, the economy is not fine. The education sector and the government sector and healthcare sector is fine. That won't be affected by lowering interest rates anyway. And really, the manufacturing piece has been dead. If you look back at the manufacturing, it's dead back when you had 0% interest rates to the left of that white bar in the middle. Why is that? Because the United States and the globalists and the Atlanticists and the Chinese influences sent all of our jobs abroad. So the manufacturing folks, the small business folks are fighting an uphill battle. And this is why, as Ken Burns said, the choice coming up in these elections is very clear. I would vote for the policies which get rid of this damage to the American worker and to the American family. All political views are my own, but this is straight economics.
By the way, beyond damage is like destruction of the American family, American worker. Before I let you go, great analysis. This is why people have to get the command brief. You got to get on our email. It's totally free, but you get all the charts, you get all the videos, you get everything that backs up the show, that if you don't watch it on TV or the streaming services. Go back, hit the rewind just for a second, go back to that, because it's never been presented like that. With the tax structure of gasoline taxes, sales taxes, federal taxes, state taxes, user fees, all of it, boom, that's at one number. Then you got inflation at a number, the drop in your purchasing power of the dollar. You essentially, best case, you're paying 30 to 35%. A third of your income goes somewhere besides your own pocket, right? Either in, Social Security, in employer taxes, sales tax, income tax, gasoline tax. It's all buried, different things, but you're paying about a third as an average schmo. And then you add on top the purchasing power. The inflation's a cumulative almost 30. The purchasing power of the dollar's dropped, concomitantly. You're getting hammered. It's essentially over half or maybe even 2/3 of what you used to have as disposable income. This is why the Bloomberg guys did it. They said your disposable income is only a quarter of what it was under Trump. They did the math, and that is showing up in the lived experience of people, and that's why Biden can't get out of this. One of the reasons he can't get out of this abyss he's fallen into is not just the illegitimate nature of the regime, but what they did to the American people to basically feather the nest of the elites. Dave Brat.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I've been more than fair with these numbers. It's way over 50%, the damage to your pocketbook, right? We did the taxes are 30, like you said, that's a very fair number when you add up federal, state, local property taxes, Social Security, it's at least a third out of your paycheck. Then add another 35%. That's from the Fed. That's from the Federal Reserve. They gave you the 35. So 30 and 35, you're at 2/3 of your American income. And we're being fair here. I haven't even added on the Larry Summers numbers, right? For the middle class, two of your major expenditure items are housing and automobile, cars. Those at the peaks were not at 9% like you're seeing on that food chart. According to Summers, they were double. They were 18%. So add on, to the average income, another 5 is very fair. Because those pieces are such a big part of your life, automobiles and housing. When you add in the interest expense, we're being more than fair. And then to get at the election, Mearsheimer, I'll post a piece today. Mearsheimer showing the liberal rules-based order has come to an end. We've enriched China so much by shifting up so many of our jobs. Not only have we lost our jobs, our manufacturing base, and our middle class, now we've made China our peer competitor an enemy. And wait till you see what you got coming at you on that front. Taiwan, go look at the news on Taiwan today. Look at all the ships circling. Yeah. That's what's coming our way.
We're going to get to that later in the show because the kinetic part of the Third World War has started, folks. I think Captain Fennell says already 1 million war dead on the Eurasian landmass and in Central Africa and in various parts of the Middle East. Dave Brat, where do they go for all your charts? All your political thoughts are your own, but your economics is just incredible. It's been dead spot on from the beginning. And now you're starting to see it roll into polls. The American people, and particularly the minority working class and middle class, they're waking up to the fact that counter to Ken Burns, this is how they're being enslaved. They're becoming Russian serfs. And Ken Burns he knows better than that. That's all this airy-fairy happy talk about democracy. Hey, we're showing you democracy every day, baby. We're turning out to vote. We're turning out to organize. Suck on that. Dave Brat.
Yep. Go to Brat Economics on Getter. Brat Economics on Getter. Read Return of the Strong Gods by R.R. Reno, R-E-N-O. The America First people love God, and we love country, and we love our families. Those are the loves that the left has taken away. Ken Burns could not be further from the truth. Liberty University believes in all three of those. Come visit me at Liberty. Get me. I'm going around the country giving talks on those issues right there, our loves. The three loves have been stripped away from us as a country and as a people. This people knows we love each other. We love God. We love our nation, the United States of America, and America First is going to win out in the end.
Thank you, Dave Brat, for carving time out to join us tonight.
You bet.
Two things. Number one, Birch Gold, obviously. Now you need a hedge more than ever. You've seen the number, the crush. I mean, just compare gold's rise to the drop in the purchasing power of the dollar. Look at that spread. That's what's called a hedge. Birchgold.com/Bannon. Talk to the experts today at Birch Gold. If you've talked to them before and maybe you signed up, go talk to them again about new programs they have, new opportunities they have. So Birch Gold right now, precious metals, particularly gold, are a tremendous hedge against times of turbulence. But talk to the professionals. We give you the macro, as we just gave you there. They give you the micro and talk to you about their instruments. So it's birchgold.com/Bannon and talk to Philip Pachter and the team. I want to thank Philip for joining us over the weekend. So tough for him to get away during the week. Also, we got Jim Rickards, who's now a contributor over here. If you love what he has to say on geopolitics and capital markets, you can get more of that on a monthly basis. He's got this very detailed newsletter called Strategic Intelligence. You get that by going to rickardswarroom.com. You also get totally free if you sign up his book on gold. Remember, he's not a gold bug, but he wrote a follow-on to Ron Paul's book of talking about the second gold revolution, the case for gold part 2, to follow up on what Ron Paul had written back in the 1980s when President Reagan was there. You don't want to miss that. rickardswarroom.com. You get the free book. You get signed up for Strategic Intelligence, all of us. So go check it out today. Natalie Dominguez, I was confused on this thing. I didn't understand what was going on in Graceland. Do we have a cold open on that? Do we? Can we go ahead? I tell you what, let's go ahead and let's get Natalie on and then tell me. Is ready to play? Let's play this and bring in Natalie Dominguez from Home Title Lock.
Is safe for now.
The real estate is considered unique under Tennessee law.
A Memphis judge blocked the auction sale of Elvis Presley's home by a mysterious corporation that claims to have the legal right to seize it.
The loss of the real estate will be considered irreparable harm.
The corporation, called Natalie Investments, claims Elvis's daughter, Lisa Marie, borrowed $3.8 million prior to her death in January last year, using the iconic home as collateral. But Lisa Marie's daughter, the actress Riley Keough, says the whole thing is a scam. Natalie Investments is a false entity created for the purpose of defrauding the heirs of Lisa Marie Presley, she says in court papers. This document that appears to be signed by Lisa Marie is alleged to be fraudulent, and the notary has never met Lisa Marie Presley. Elvis's ex-wife, Priscilla Presley, posted this, making her feelings crystal clear. The war for Graceland was eagerly watched today across the USA. Meanwhile, the company that claims ownership of Graceland didn't even bother showing up in court.
CNN has reached out to that company. We tried by phone. That line was disconnected. We tried by email. We got an automatic response to that. We couldn't find that company.
You couldn't find the company?
Elvis bought Graceland in 1957 for $102,000. Except for the White House, it attracts more visitors than any other home in America. I spoke with the mayor of Memphis, Paul Young.
What would Memphis be without Graceland?
I don't even like to think of a universe where that happens because it has been so pivotal to our community. Since it's been open, there's been over 25 million people that have visited that home.
It's also hallowed ground. Elvis and 3 generations of his family are buried there.
Okay, this is about your title. Natalie Dominguez joins us now from Home Title Lock. Is that what this whole thing was about? Was this a corporation that went in and actually took their title?
Hi, Steve. Allegedly. So I never thought I'd say this on your show, but I guess we're talking about Elvis today. Like you saw in the video earlier this month, this investment company came out of nowhere and tried auctioning off the house in a foreclosure sale because they claimed that prior to her death, Lisa Marie took out that big $1 million loan, used the house as collateral, and then never paid it. So you saw the video. It's clear title fraud. And now Elvis's granddaughter has inherited the problem. The family's countersuing, which they'll have to do in multiple states now because some of the fraudulent documents were filed across state lines, and even the FBI is getting involved. But luckily, as you saw, just a day before the property was scheduled to be auctioned, a judge put a temporary hold on the sale because, you heard the quote, it's considered unique under Tennessee law, and the loss of real estate would be considered irreparable harm. But here's the kicker. Prior to all of this, the registrar for Shelby County, where Graceland is located, went on the news and said in the last few years they've had nearly 450 cases related to title fraud in their county alone, which means that if you live in Shelby County, you have about a 1 in 100 chance of being a victim of these crimes. Now, in the case of Graceland, a temporary stay was put on the sale because the judge said the loss would cause irreparable harm. But why? I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that it's because it's the second most visited property in the U.S. outside of the White House, and it brings in a lot of tourism, which by extension brings in a lot of taxes. But what about us normal people? What about the other near 450 cases in Shelby County? Because for those everyday citizens who are victims of title fraud, I can absolutely guarantee that it's caused most, if not all of them, irreparable harm. Their time, their families, their finances, their sanity. To me, it seems that the government only cares about these issues when it's costing them. But if Graceland basically or any other property in Shelby County was being by Home Title Lock, the family would have been notified at the very first filing associated with the property, even if it had happened out of state, and then our restoration team would have immediately jumped in to take care of it to prevent things like the foreclosure sale from ever happening in the first place. It's crazy.
This is absolutely stunning. Real quickly, I want you to hang on through the break. Real quickly, Shelby County said how many title fraud cases have they had?
In the last few years, almost 450. And when I did the math. I looked at the population, the percentage. Nuts.
Unbelievable. Hang on for 1 second. I'll hold you through the break. Natalie's 100% correct. The reason something happened positive about Graceland is that it is a national monument. It draws it draws millions of people a year, millions of dollars in tax revenue. Also, it's iconic. It is so tied to Memphis with Elvis Presley. But what about if it was you? I mean, would a judge step in and say, oh, your castle is a national monument? Yeah, I don't think so. So short commercial break. We're going to get into this on the other side. Also, Ben Harnwell is going to join us on the early days of the Third World War, all in the War Room. All this nonsense, all this spin, they can't handle the truth.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. Once again, Natalie, I just want people to understand this because this is title fraud, home title fraud, but these guys were off the hook because it's Elvis Presley and it's Graceland and it's a national monument and it's a huge tourist attraction. And like they said, it's sacred soil. You're not going to get the same, you're not going to get a judge to step in and save you. So tell people right now, where do they go to check this out? Because you couldn't have a better example. Hey, if it can happen to Elvis, who's one of the most iconic historical personages in this country, it can happen to anybody. So where do they go, Natalie?
Absolutely. They can go to our website, hometitlelock.com, use the promo code WARROOM to check on their title today. Make sure it's not compromised. You can sign up. You can get a free title scan, as well as their first 30 days of protection for free. They can cancel anytime. Again, that's hometitlelock.com, promo code WARROOM. And on behalf of all of us at Home Title Lock, a happy belated Memorial Day as we honor U.S. military personnel who died while serving in the United States Armed Forces. Thank you so much for your service and your sacrifice.
Natalie, now more than ever, this is a very simple service to get. It's very straightforward. And I'm telling you, we look at a place like Shelby County, as great as that is, and they're talking about 450. Folks, you got to understand, with AI, with cyber, with people around you, just bad folks that can get in there, right now, that is your castle. And this economic, I talk about hedges against times of turbulence. Your home is your castle, and your home also is about 90% of your net worth. You cannot allow anything, anybody, any system, any process to mess around with. So, Natalie, one more time, where do they go?
HometitleLock.com, promo code WARROOM.
Thank you for doing it, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate you. Graceland, I mean, that's a shocker. If that judge hadn't stepped in there, who knows what would have happened. And, of course, those guys ran away as soon as they stepped in. It was kind of exposed. But, man, this thing, remember, 90%, if you're average American, and you're fortunate enough to have a home, 90% of your net worth, what you're dependent upon for retirement, what you're depending upon for stability, kind of your ballast is at home. So make sure nobody can mess with it. That's where the pros over at Home Title Lock have got you covered. HometitleLock.com/Bannon for your get your free services. Ben Harnwell joins us from Rome. Ben, we've got the European parliamentary elections coming up. We had this morning, we had the team on, Noor bin Laden and former Congressman Michelle Bachmann talking about the World Health Organization and how that's being fought right now, this WHO, the pandemic treaty. You've got Macron, all these people coming out about the rise of the right wing. And the first time France, a president has had, I think, a state visit to Germany in like 2.5 decades. But I want to go back to, you got the Chinese Communist Party in this massive display of force around Taiwan. At the same time, to me, it looks like it's unraveling in the Ukraine as we said it would. And it's now time, I think, for adults to step in here before the Ukrainian people even have more destruction and there's actually something to save. Give me your perspective first, and I know you got a bunch of pieces you want to go through.
Yeah, well, look, this is absolutely the case. And with the European elections now 5 weeks and 2 days away, these things are starting to have a certain resonance in the political debate, specifically around one key element here. First, the French had mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. We hit it on the show now. The British Tories have mentioned it. And that's the idea of reintroducing compulsory military service for 18-year-olds. Now, obviously, I think there's, I put out on my Getter feed this morning an article where this concept was referred to as political suicide, as indeed it is. And you can only imagine that someone who doesn't want a general election is going to start talking about this a week or so before calling a snap election, which is what Rishi Sunak has done. There is no appetite in the UK, or for that matter in Germany, to reintroduce conscription for 18-year-olds, compulsory military service. And yet that is what's now happening. And I'd like to gently suggest this is the only reason Germany and the UK will be mentioning this at this time. As we said like a couple of weeks ago, just under the European elections, it's under pressure from the United States, from the Biden administration. And there are various reasons. We can go into that, why they're doing this, why they're putting on this pressure. But it is political suicide. Allied to that, Steve, what I'd like to mention today...
Hang on. Hang on one second. Because, go back, I want to talk about this conscription thing. It kind of came out of nowhere in the UK, Germany. And now over the weekend, I haven't had a chance to cut the clips, but you had a couple of congressmen on, Democrat and Republican, on the Sunday talk shows talking about, wait for it, national service, which would also mean a conscription in the military because we're missing our targets. And they pump it up with national service people. It's a good thing for kids. It gets them out of the house and gets them away from social media and makes adults of them. But the reason they're doing this now, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's nobody that wants to volunteer for these forever wars. The American military is missing their targets, and particularly missing the targets of people that can really serve, not the obese, low IQ people they're lowering the standards for. In the UK, you see this. In the complete quote unquote NATO countries, you see it. In Ukraine, you see it. The parents there are getting their kids out. They're having to go to this conscription, and that's not even working now. Young people and their parents don't want them serving in the charnel house of the Ukraine trenches that look like August 1914. Ben Harnwell, why would Sunak bring this up? This is redonkulous. This has never been. This is not something that's been talked about, and all of a sudden, we want to make it a key thing. This is like out of nowhere.
Steve, you actually have ministers of this government coming out on the record saying there had been zero consultation about this, zero possibility for them as ministers in government to come out and express their point of view. This has basically been imposed by Rishi Sunak directly on the party immediately before calling a snap election. And obviously, as I say, the Telegraph, which is like probably the most Tory of the main broadsheets in the UK, has called this in its headline, in inverted commas, in quote marks, political suicide. That is absolutely the case, as it was when we mentioned this in the German context a month or so ago. There's no appetite for this. So asking the question, just pulling back a bit and say, why are they doing this? Well, it's, basically our sociopathic overlords, Steve, have decreed, they have ordained that Ukraine will win its unwinnable war against Russia. And they're going to throw, as they have been doing for 2 years, they will throw everything at this in order to win. And the only way that we, the ordinary populace, have to confront this is by voting them out of office at every opportunity that we have, because these people are serpents. No good having a pet cobra and complaining that it's always biting your hand, because that's the nature of the cobra. It doesn't matter how much you caress its head and stroke it, it's going to bite your hand. Our sociopathic overlords are sociopaths. They are literally sociopaths. Something wrong with them in their heads. Don't say, look, if we give you status, if we call you senator and my lord this, or deputy that you're going to start liking us and being nice to us. These people look at us with contempt, largely because we let them do so. And we have to vote them out. We have to deselect them in UK terminology, primary them in American terminology at every single opportunity that confronts itself. That's how we're going to. What these people want to do, Steve. Remember, was it Neville Chamberlain who came out with peace in our time? What our sociopathic overlords are pledged to do, to deliver, is war in our time. And in every single one of their discourses, they are more and more explicit about it. We have European elections 3 weeks away. We have a general election in the UK 5 weeks ago. We finally have a choice, perhaps. It's not a great, as Raheem had said on the show, like last week, you can't put a cigarette paper between the two main political parties in the UK. And it's broadly the same, I think, in the United States as well. If it weren't for the MAGA movement, which transcends both parties, it's the same selection. That's why we have to take what you've always been saying, Steve. We have to take our own agency in our own hands and determine our own destiny, and not let these people ruin all the hard-earned gains that have been delivered for us over generations.
If you look at what's happening around Taiwan, the mainstream media barely mentions it, and it is full on. The PLA, this is a full flex. They're showing you that they're telling you the 7th Fleet can't save Taiwan. That's what they're saying. And people are over analysis over the weekend of what they looked in the exercise that this would be over in 2 days. At the same time, in Ukraine, as the reality around Kharkiv becomes evident, that Zelensky's had years to put all that money we gave him around defenses of Kharkiv. It wasn't done. That money was stolen, or somehow it went to somebody's pocket, but it certainly wasn't done to put defenses around Kharkiv. Now you've got this whole thing about we want to start launching this pressure. They want to start using UK missiles, French missiles, American missiles to start shooting into Russia itself. And they're blaming the West for late delivery, didn't do enough. And I mean, all of a sudden, Zelensky's gone from a supplicant to like, it's your fault. You didn't do this. And this thing's coming unglued now. And that's why there's no discussion or real discussion of really what does it take to get into a room and actually start to save the Ukrainian people, a crushing defeat here from which they'll never recover. Ben Harnwell.
Steve, well, I wasn't actually going to mention that on the show today, though it is pretty important. Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO, had said last week that NATO needs to allow for its members to supply its long-range missiles to Ukraine with the proviso that they might be able to strike deep into Russian territory about that. I think you and I spoke about this briefly off air on Friday. Today or yesterday, he's done a U-turn on this, and he's come out and said, look, as far as the NATO official position is that member states of NATO will decide for themselves whether to give Ukraine that permission or not. And I think, the press, firstly, has hardly covered this remotely. Secondly, I think the fact that there's been this U-turn at the highest level in NATO, at the Secretary General level, public U-turn, is an illustration that within the organization, within the alliance itself, there are massive splits now. There's a massive divergence of opinion. And this is thanks, perhaps, I think, to Biden, who's claiming he's created this alliance around the world to defeat Putin. Well, one of the consequences of that is that NATO has never been more split in its existence on such an important area of policy. And these splits are now coming out into the open. Now that's an astonishing climb down on behalf of Jens Stoltenberg. But it's illustrative now of where we are as an alliance that he's had to do that.
Well, it's not really alliance. Tell me about around Kharkiv, because this is all, as it has been from the beginning, all about what happens on the battlefield. This has now kind of gone out of the control of people to get in conference rooms or start to negotiate, because the Russians, as happened in World War II, they're not gonna give up any territory they took. That's just obvious. I think why should they? They've got the stroke. They've got the muscle. The West has allowed this to happen. Zelensky, and I use two principal receipts. Number one, Zelensky has not come up with the 500,000 fresh troops. The reason is young people in the country don't want to do it. They understand they're just fighting for a corrupt oligarchy that's not even legitimate. That his term ran out last Friday. He declared war powers, but obviously people in the country wanted an election. It didn't happen. And number two is this perfect example in Kharkiv where people in the townspeople said we kept seeing trucks going through and things going through and nothing was built. It's their questions like, hey, we were told there was going to be actual, military, fortresses, military embattlements, military things to stop the Russian onslaught. And quote unquote, they're just walking into the villages that are north and northeast of Kharkiv. Those are two receipts right there that show you the reality on the ground. And it's the reality on the ground that's going to drive this negotiation. Ben Harnwell.
Yeah, well, Steve, we were promised basically a threefold Maginot Line that was constructed in 3 tiers, and that hasn't materialized. And it's a very good question as to where that money has gone. Now, you mentioned the lack of Ukrainian cannon fodder that's volunteering or being press-ganged to fight, and that's having an influence now on Ukraine's present status. There's movement on that, if I may just quickly pivot to Radosław Sikorski, who's the Polish foreign minister. He's come out with a threefold policy statement, Steve. He's called for a majority voting for EU sanctions because presently it's done by unanimity. That's not a big issue in of itself. He's called for a 5,000 strong EU mechanized brigade. Well, that's slightly more important because it's coming towards this idea of a single European army controlled by the European Union rather than individual member states. But more apropos to the point that you were just mentioning, he's talking about an EU-wide scheme to incentivize Ukrainian draft dodgers to return to their homeland. And that, I think, is obviously under pressure from not only Zelensky, but also to the Americans, because that's their last hope, right? This national service, this compulsory conscription for Europeans isn't going to go anywhere. So if they want to keep this war on its legs, at least until the presidential elections in November, then they're going to have to find a way. And it's incredibly hypocritical of the European Union to do this, because as we said on the show before repeatedly, the idea that we can't send migrants and refugees back to their countries because there's wars going on doesn't sort of that's the line when we have sort of people coming in from the third world, but Ukrainians can be incentivized, which obviously means picked up and extraordinary renditioned back to their front lines, is appalling. There's something else that he said here, this Polish foreign minister, and I must get this in on the show today because it's incredibly important, and I've not seen any other reference to this in the media or whatsoever. There's only this line. He says, and I quote, "The Americans have told the Russians that if you explode a nuke, even if it doesn't kill anybody, we will hit all your targets, that is, say, positions in Ukraine with conventional weapons. We'll destroy all of them." So America, you haven't been told this. But America's basically pledged your entry into the war under that condition. And that's an astonishing admission to escape, basically. Yeah.
A buried lead. Yeah. Ben, where do people go to get all your breaking news and analysis?
Thanks, Steve. Getter, my social media platform of choice. Simply tap in my surname Harnwell, and there are my posts, which I keep updated constantly. Thanks, Steve. God bless.
Thank you, bro. Let's play the flag shirt. I want to play the flag shirts. Peace.
Hello, I'm Steve Stern, CEO of Flagshirt.com, a third-generation, veteran-owned small business. I believe that the American way of life is for all of us. I'm asking you today to visit Flagshirt.com. Help keep the American dream alive. Be a flag waver. Carry a nation's heritage. Use coupon code ACTION10 for 10% off site-wide and buy a flag shirt today. Action, action, action.
Action, action, action. Make sure you show your patriotism, maybe by going to the flag shirt company and check out what they got. Steve Stern, the most ambitious 83-year-old I know. Great guy. Part of the precinct strategy and the MAGA's taking over. MAGA on the march. Okay, Bill Walton, a great American hero and a deadhead. We're going to have a little tribute to him going out. Lou Dobbs follows us. We're back at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. The great Bill Walton.
The holiday season, I brought you a special gift here. Now, this is not from the park. You can't do that. I brought this from my hotel room.
You know, this has termites, right, these things?
No, I've been traveling, and so I was late. So this is for you, and this is a very special. You can talk to Larry Kraskowiak about what to do with this, but this can be eaten. This can be burnt as fuel. This can be used as decoration in your house. It's just very, very beautiful. And these things, they grow, you know, it takes forever to get this big. So this is a sacred piece of art.
With termites
history.
And scorpions. You know that, right?
No. This is...
You sure the one by your thumb there isn't a scorpion?
No, that is my thumb. I've got a new routine here, and that's where I wave this around you. Like we're going to set this on fire here, but the fire marshals have asked me not to do this. But this is a blessing for you.
Thank you.
For your soul. We're praying for your soul here. Please keep this incredible gift. Yes,
we get security, please.
That's a Kentucky. That's the team that wears the blue.
Cortez, where are you going? Come on. He's trying to teach us something here, Cortez. Oh, my gosh.
That's when I was mugged and drugged by Walton to get that tie-dye shirt on.
Cortez has a very short attention span, and he doesn't really respond to verbal commands.
Bill wants to go, or Jay wants to go on the teepee, Bill.
This is an excellent shirt, by the way. I've got one of those.
This is your shirt.
That's my shirt.
Yeah, it is.
That was like the time that after the Celtic championship in '86, I woke up the next day, I had Rick Carlisle's shirt on.